Congratulations are in order for Rivian on accomplishing an amazing 2022 full of production, and I'm gonna go ahead and give them a little bit of credit and just say they basically hit guidance. So they reported deliveries, and they delivered over 20,000 vehicles in 2022, and I'm sure there's a lot of vehicles still in transit, but their guidance at the beginning was that they would produce about 25,000 vehicles, and I will applaud them for it. They stayed consistent with that guidance throughout the entire year, and I would almost argue that they basically exceeded that because there was an internal email sent out by RJ as well as the company celebrating that they technically had 25,000 Rivians out of the factory line. The only reason that their actual production number was about 700 under is because there's a lot of vehicles that are out of the factory but waiting on, last minute like parts and components. So yeah, you could kind of argue that they missed their production targets, but they're so absurdly close to hitting them anyway, and it's their first year of production. I'm willing to just give them the benefit of the doubt. Basically how I also said that Tesla essentially maintained guidance in 2020, even though they were technically a little bit under 500,000 vehicles delivered. I think Rivian did an incredible job, and they definitely don't have a demand problem considering still to this day in 2023, you cannot really lock in your price of Rivians. You can reserve one, but that doesn't guarantee the price won't go up in the future. As far as we're aware, they still have an over 100,000 vehicle backlog, and that's not even counting the Rivian delivery van. So overall, I'm impressed, and while they are burning a lot of money every quarter, they still have a ton of money in the bank. And the good thing is, if you're able to reach guidance, and if you're able to ramp up production as fast as they are, it's incredible if you consider that in the first quarter of 2022, they built like 2,500 vehicles, and by the last quarter, they built over 10,000. That means that Rivian is proving capable at scaling up production, which means increasing revenue exponentially, and that gets them closer and closer to profitability. But still, they've got a long ways to go until then, but that's why I'm even more excited for Rivian in 2023, because they really get to double down on the trims and different options of the R1T and R1S that I think most people are going to be buying. So in my opinion, the biggest change that we should be looking forward to with Rivian in 2023 is the dual motor powertrain, which they've been hyping up on social media a lot. Basically, this is a cheaper version of the R1T, but it appears that they're still able to get really great performance out of it, even really great off-roading capabilities, and not quite as accurate, but still pretty decent torque vectoring for each wheel. And the more interesting development is they've said that there will be two different versions of the dual motor powertrain. One that's more performance oriented, which absolutely blows my mind if you consider that these trucks are like over 7,000 pounds, but they have a higher powered version of the dual motor powertrain that's gonna be able to do 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds with over 700 horsepower, which is insanely good considering there's only two motors. And then they're going to have a cheaper, lower spec dual motor powertrain, and that can still do 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds, which is still insanely fast for a vehicle of that size and that price point. People are not used to pickup trucks and SUVs being able to do that kind of thing, but I actually think even though the prices are coming down on these dual motor tiers, the profitability should still technically go up a bit because you're not going to have as many motors to worry about or wire. And while I know I've said in the past that electric vehicle powertrains relatively are not that much of the overall vehicle price, Rivian doesn't design and build their own powertrains in-house. They're still outsourcing their powertrains, which means they probably have more money to save by minimizing the number of motors they need per vehicle, whereas Tesla with the Cybertruck picking between quad motor and dual motor, because Tesla designs and builds all their own powertrains in-house, I don't think it results in that big a difference. With Rivian, it probably is a bigger piece of the pie. Even on the higher priced end of Rivian, they plan on introducing the Max Pack variant with the dual motor powertrain this summer, which means that we're basically only 5-6 months away from that launching, which in my opinion very well could be the first electric pickup truck to have 400 miles of range. GM keeps claiming that the Silverado EV is going to have 400 miles of range, but they haven't got into the specifics on the specs of the work truck, which is delivering first, and that work truck is only delivering to fleet buyers primarily, which means that there's probably some NDA contracts going on, and ultimately, even if the work truck does get 400 miles of range, if it's only for fleet buyers initially, then it's not really competing with the Rivian because Rivian is catering towards the masses, everyday buyers. So in regards to like what kind of 400 mile range electric pickup truck you can actually buy, I do think the Rivian is going to be first. I don't think the Cybertruck's going to be ready by then, considering the Gigapress is not even assembled yet, and the parts haven't even showed up at the factory, so in my opinion, that retains Rivian's leadership in the electric trucking space. And honestly, I think the Rivian's gonna undercut the Cybertruck by quite a bit as well. And while the F-150 Lightning is a very capable, very work-friendly pickup truck that a lot of people have bought and enjoyed, I think there's one key advantage that the Rivian has over the F-150 Lightning, aside from having a better range version coming out later this year, but also Rivian is building their own dedicated charging network. And we saw the first few stations go in 2022, which is awesome. They seem to be reliable and consistent, and so far they let you charge for free, which I know won't last, but it's pretty cool that you can do that. And they're even prioritizing having pull-through charge stations. And at this time, Rivian is doing something that I think is really competitive. They are only available to Rivians at first. Even though they use the CCS connector, the Rivian Adventure Network, at least the level 3 fast chargers, they are not capable of charging F-150s or Mach-E's or ID4s. These are new charge stations that you can follow Twitter accounts for updates on how many new Adventure charging stations are being deployed. These will only charge Rivians. So, especially as more and more people are looking for sustainable ways to tow great distances, a 400-mile range Rivian R1T that is capable of accessing an exclusive charging network that has pull-through stations, yeah, I'm gonna have to say the Rivian wins out a little bit in the towing department over the F-150 Lightning, which is relying entirely on Electrify America, which doesn't have the pull-through stations as much and doesn't have great reliability, and you gotta share that sketchy network with other third-party EVs that may be taking up stalls because they charge pretty slowly, whereas Rivian can honestly charge much faster than the F-150 Lightning. So it is a bit smaller, you know, the bed isn't as big and the frunk isn't as accessible, but I do still think there's some incredibly key advantages the Rivian has over Ford, and I really hope in 2023 we can actually see like more mass deployment of the Adventure Network as more and more people are complaining to Rivian about, hey, your trucks are great, but we need a better charging infrastructure. I just think the Rivian has the edge on everybody else by having their own exclusive stations. So they're going to keep ramping the delivery vans, which is awesome. I think they're going to deliver more vehicles that are more profitable because of their dual motor powertrains, and they have a huge order backlog that they are nowhere close to fulfilling. So demand is not a problem with Rivian. Ramping is not a problem with Rivian. As far as non-Tesla EV startups go, I have to say this one, in my opinion, looks to be in the best position for success, and I really just overall love the designs. I think they have the perfect mesh between adventuring and outdoors and software and futuristic technology, and it sucks that I can't really justify owning a pickup truck. There's just nothing I really do that requires one in my life, because I would love to own a Rivian someday, and I can't justify it because I know I wouldn't really use it any differently than I use my Model 3 rear-wheel drive. But I'm super jealous and envious of everybody that's getting their Rivians right now, and they look to be expanding into more demographics as well, with first deliveries in Canada starting very soon. And honestly, based on how good and how promising the results are for the dual motor powertrain and the fact that there's going to be a high-powered and low-powered version, I kind of feel like they could scrap the quad motor at this point. Like, if for production efficiency they just did dual motor, they would probably be fine. Like, they would probably get better energy efficiency, which means better range. It would cost them less to build. It would be less complexity on the assembly line. I'm kind of in favor of them delaying the quad motor, or just kind of temporarily suspending quad motor production and just say, hey, quad motor vehicles are just a early adoption benefit, but in the meantime, we're just going to focus on dual motor. And you can keep prices the same. Like, just let the high-powered dual motor trim be the same price as the current quad motor. And sure, some people will be bummed out that that individual motor control and traction isn't as good, but honestly, I still think the dual motor is going to be very capable for off-roading and snow mode and taking the Rivian in slippery situations. So I'm all in favor of what gets this company to profitability faster, so that hopefully they can get to work in a couple of years on the R2 platform and kind of make more affordable vehicles for the masses. Lots of cool stuff coming from Rivian, so let me know what you guys are most excited for down in the comments below. And thank you to everyone on Patreon supporting this channel directly. It seriously helps us out a ton, as does just watching these videos. So thanks again, and have an excellent rest of your day.